Hello, everyone, and welcome to another webinar in the Employer Perspectives webinar series. And today's webinar is titled Help Wanted, Recruiting Immigrant Talent in a Tightening Labor Market. Long before COVID-19 hit Canada, several sectors in the economy already were experiencing labor shortages, skill shortages, and as we're emerging from the pandemic today and companies, businesses are ramping up their operations, we can see signals everywhere that the labor market is tightening. The immigrant talent pool continues to be the main source of net labor force growth in Canada. And in today's webinar, we bring to you award-winning employers who will share their strategies, their perspectives, and their best practices for recruiting immigrants. And also there will be representatives of immigrant-serving organizations who will discuss what support is available to employers to recruit immigrants. The Employer Perspectives webinar series is brought to you by the Immigrant Employment Councils of Canada and New Canadians TV network. And today's webinar specifically is organized in collaboration with Hire Immigrants Ottawa. My name is Gerard Kalajian, and I'm delighted to welcome today's moderator, Henry Akanko from Hire Immigrants Ottawa. Henry is the project director at Hire Immigrants Ottawa, which is an initiative that brings together employers, immigrant-serving agencies, and many other stakeholders to develop and champion solutions to systemic barriers around the integration of skilled immigrants into the Ottawa labor force. As a project director, Henry provides strategic leadership and oversees the management of Hire Immigrants Ottawa, where he leads a team that undertakes employer engagement for immigrant employment and development of employer-oriented tools and resources for creating diverse, inclusive workplaces. Welcome, Henry. Before handing over to you, I'll just remind the audience that joining us today from different parts of Canada, as well as I can see from overseas, that they are encouraged to ask questions to the panelists by by using the Q&A tab on Zoom or the chat box if you're joining on YouTube, and the questions will be directed to the panelists throughout the session. Welcome, Henry, and over to you.
Thank you, Gerald. Hire Immigrants Ottawa is pleased to co-host this edition of the Employer Perspective series, Help Wanted, Recruiting Immigrant Talent in a Tightening Labor Market. I would like to also mention that this event form part of the activities of the Welcoming Ottawa Week. For those of you who are joining us from Ottawa, are familiar with this annual program that is led by the Ottawa Local Immigration Partnership to showcase the many initiatives across our city that support immigrants' integration. We have participants joining us from coast to coast and also from overseas, as Gerald has noted. Thank you very much for joining us today for this event. Before we get started, I would like to start by acknowledging that I'm coming to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin Nation. As we commemorate National Indigenous Month in June, I invite you to take the time to understand the history of the land where you live and conduct business. Whether we immigrated to this land by choice, by force, by displacement, or were born here in subsequent generations, we recognize that as settlers and immigrants, we are bound by the treaties of this land. In the best of times, finding and hiring skilled immigrants is challenging. Finding talent, hiring talent is challenging, period. In the past 2 years, this has been even more so, with the pandemic affecting all spheres of our work and social lives. It often seems like we live and work at work because of the remote and hybrid work arrangements that we have. And so as we emerge from the pandemic, businesses will need a diversity of ideas and perspectives and approaches to drive productivity and innovation with their operations. And so we're beginning to see as operations ramp up signals of a tightening labor market. Organizations are expressing a lot of frustrations about the challenges, even in confirming candidates for interviewing. Terms like ghosting has become very common lingo in the HR world these days. And this is a phenomenon where candidates confirm for interviews and don't show up. This happened to our team recently when we were interviewing, and we had a candidate who was supposed to show up at a designated time, and we were ready. After 5-10 minutes, they were not showing up, and we followed up with an email to find out if they were coming, tried to call, we couldn't reach them. They didn't care to let us know that they were not going to show up. And we continued to hear a lot of this happening, which are all signals that talent is hard to find. People have a lot more options. You see help wanted signs everywhere. And so this is a very timely conversation to be had. And I am pleased to be joined by our 4 panelists this afternoon who would share some practical insights about how to attract, hire, and integrate immigrants into our workplaces. I'm pleased to welcome Stefan Barlow, Director of People and Culture at Iversoft, Christy Clark, Human Resource Manager, Jitech Scientific Incorporated, Marco Rotondo, Manager Employer Engagement with WorldSkills Employment Center. Last but not the least, Sebastian Martin, Senior Director of Employment Services at the YMCA-YEC of the National Capital Region. So thank you very much for joining us this afternoon to have a chat about attracting and integrating immigrant talent into our workplaces. I'll start with Christy and Steph. Your organizations are both 2-time recipients of the High Immigrants Ottawa Employer Excellence Awards. And these are recognitions that are often given to organizations that demonstrate best practices around the hiring and integration of immigrants and creating welcoming and inclusive, diverse workplaces. So Christy, if you can get it started with today's discussions. Why is your hiring a diverse and inclusive workplace, especially immigrant talent, important to your talent strategy at Jitech?
For Jitech in particular, literally one of our strategies or our overall objectives is to hire a world-class workforce. And we really mean world-class. With our team in particular, we have over 90 employees now. We're going to hit 100 this summer. So big moment for us. I know it's a big moment. But with our 90, we have our staff have immigrated from over 20 countries. We speak over 26 languages. 38% of our team are female. 50% of our leadership team are female. So we have a very world-class workforce that we're building now. And it's very important to what we do. For Jitech in particular as well, we sell our products into over 90 countries. So that diverse workforce allows us to have a diverse place in that international marketplace as well. And it really gives us that upper hand to have those dialogues, to have that diversity in the conversation, to have that richness in the conversation. It's a big part to our strategy and who we are as a company.
And Steph, Christy has just shared with us all these various drivers that for us who do employee engagement when we go up, these are the business drivers that we make to any organization about why they should hire immigrants. What's your take on this for Iversoft?
Yeah, I think Christy really hit the nail on the head. It is having this wonderful kind of diverse perspective. For us at Iversoft, we're making custom software, so mobile and web applications, and they're being used by users all over the world. And so a lot of people don't realize this, but even things like UX are completely different in one country to the next. And so having individuals who can lend those perspectives when you don't then have to go do external research or hire external contractors, things like that. It's so valuable to really just have all of those perspectives in-house. For us, I think, I know a lot of people like to refer to their company as a family, but I prefer a community, because when you have a community, everyone brings something new to the table in order to help the community grow and help the community thrive. And that's what hiring immigrant talent has done for us. It brings in these new perspectives so that we're not kind of a one-note company where everyone thinks exactly the same way. It allows us to just really kind of change our processes and everything so that we're really just more agile and more adaptive to the current market for our clients. So the business benefit is just tremendous.
Right. So Marco, Christy describes the workplace as a community, and part of that ecosystem is the people who make up this community, including immigrant talent. You are in the business of making sure that skilled immigrants are prepared for work and they are ready to hit the ground running. What we are seeing from what the labor economists are telling us is unemployment is at an all-time low. We are seeing the labor market tightening, and we know that there is a difference in terms of the employment levels for Canadians and immigrants, and that reflects as well in the unemployment. Even though it's at all-time low, we see that the unemployment rate for immigrants is still higher than the Canadian-born. What can you tell us about what we have in terms of the clients you're seeing? Do we have a good, steady a pool of talent, international talent still coming in and available for employers looking to fill these vacancies they have?
That's a great question, Henry. And I can attest, like, since now all restrictions are slowly being lifted for immigrants coming into the country, there's still a huge talent pool, and we're seeing an uptake in the amount of registrations that are coming through world scales. And I'm always completely blown away of the talent that we have in Ottawa and in Canada. It's a very diverse talent that's coming in as well. Everything from like entry level to management. And I can also give you a brief overview of the type of sectors that are coming into the region. 23% of our clients are in the business, finance, and banking sector. And the second biggest sector of clients are in the public sector with 16%. 16% are in the engineering sector, which includes IT. 10% are in the healthcare sector. 10% are in specialized middle management. 8% are in office and customer support. 7% are technicians. And 5% are in the education sector. 5% in the trade sector. 2% in the legal sector, and 1% in the marketing and communication, and 2% in other sectors. And just in the last 2 years, I've seen also an uptake in the amount of our immigrant talent being able to secure employment. We had 800 world scales clients secure employment in 2021, which is up 300 from 2020. So it's very encouraging to see, considering the barriers and challenges newcomers face, topped with a global pandemic in the last 2 years.
Right. So as we see, the pandemic did slow things down a bit, but we also are encouraged that some hiring was still taking place, and now that things are opening up, we continue to see that go up. Sebastian, what are you seeing in terms of the pool of talent that we have? Is there any cause for panic that we don't have them, or is it the case that employers just need to do a little more digging to find the talent by reaching out to organizations like yourselves?
Thank you, Henry. I think it's educating employers in the community that there are resources in organizations like the Y and World Skills available for them free of charge. that they can just tap into those resources in order to recruit high-level educated talent, and obviously newcomers that just arrived and obviously are looking to settle in Ottawa and obviously getting a job. The main numbers that I've seen is very similar to what Marco has described: highly educated, internationally trained individual. And that brings the challenge of them coming here and wanting to get something similar in that work field. And the main problem that we hear from employers is that the level of English, the language skills, is not yet there in order to land those high profile, if you want, position. So we're talking CLB level, 2 to 4. It's a bit more challenging to get those positions versus someone who perhaps their English is all the better, will be able to communicate, understand in especially an interview, and land that obviously that position, because that person is highly educated, often will have the education to get to that level. But often, if they don't, they will be now getting position maybe a little bit lower, like a cleaner or a dishwasher, and now at that point, they're not interested, and rightfully so, to go in those areas. So now you're having come in that circle of like, how can you learn the language fast enough so that you can enter the labor market in your desired, obviously, area based on your education. So this is what we're trying to do: educate our clients and say, go out there. Language is really the key component here.
Right. So we know that language is key. It's a huge determinant for successful integration into the labor force. But there are also a number of other barriers that oftentimes are in the way of immigrants getting into the labor force. And some of these are challenges that employers such as Christie's and Steph's have found very innovative ways to get around. One of the things we often hear about is Canadian experience. And also international credentials. So coming back to you, Steph, can you speak to us about how you address issues around international education? Because you have a very innovative way of how you assess people, and for you, looks like you focus a lot on the experience and less on where people were educated.
Yeah, so for us in particular, what we've done, and I understand that this is maybe, it's definitely easier to get away with in tech, but we've eliminated all educational requirements from every single one of our job descriptions. So there are no educational requirements to apply for any job at Iversoft. They are nice to have, but it's, especially because some of the best programmers I've met are self-taught. It's just, it doesn't make sense to hone in too heavily on education. So that's been a big one for us, is eliminating that education requirement, which I think already kind of creates a sense of ease with our applicants, because they aren't so fixated on those equivalencies, those like West equivalencies and such. So that already kind of creates a really great jumping off point. So that's been a big success for us, is really just taking that factor out. And then in regards to Canadian experience, what I've done personally is anyone who chats with talent or is involved in the recruiting cycle at Iversoft, everyone is specifically trained to actually make sure we're encouraging candidates to chat about their international experience. One of my recruiters is actually from Morocco, and he, coming to Iversoft, talked about when I was going through this training with him, he's like, wow, he's like, I actually was so hesitant to speak about my experience. So he's like, I actually really understand what someone might be feeling. And I was like, exactly. It's unfortunate that we've created this problem for applicants coming from international locations where they aren't comfortable speaking about this experience because they've had bad experiences with past employers. So personally, I've I've trained anyone in our recruiting cycle that they're making sure that they're asking specifically about their international experience. Like, no, tell me about this position, tell me about this job. I want to hear about it, so that they are comfortable opening up, so that we are kind of creating that safe space for them. And then ultimately, every single one of our positions has an assessment portion built in, that is take home. It's done on someone's own time so that they can do it within their most optimal comfort level. And that way we are purely making decisions on skills and ability, and emphasizing that instead of this kind of Canadian experience BS, frankly. Pardon my French.
Christy, I know you seek out international experience. It's something that you put a premium on, while others take a very different view of it. Can you speak to your approach to valuing international experience and why this is important, that other employers should pay attention to, really looking at that international experience and not preferring Canadian experience per se?
Absolutely. And I agree with elements of what Steph was saying there. It's about experience, and it's about experience, only experience. We use, in our interview process, we use the same consistent approach for all of our applicants. So we have a very consistent approach, no matter where you're from, what your experience is. We ask you the same questions. We try to make it very dialogue driven and less formal. It's not, 6 of us on one side of the table versus you on the other kind of format. It's very interactive. We try to get them to relax so that they tell us more about their experience, so that they are more conversational in it, and we can pull out those segments of their actual experience. We want to actually hear about them, and it's I would say the biggest component for us is about culture fit. Our first and our last interview are all about culture. In the first interview, if I don't think you're going to be a great fit into our culture, there isn't a second interview. Before anybody is hired at Geotech, one of our 2 co-founders meets with them specifically for a culture fit interview before any offer is given. So it's really important to us on the culture side that they're a fit. And then in between the 2 kind of culture driven interviews would be the guts of the experience part. But,
so when you talk about culture fit, what specifically are you looking for? What type of culture are you speaking about? So
for Geotech, our values are a big part of what we do: creativity, passion, integrity. We do a lot in the space of sustainability. So we want to know that your values are the same as ours. We want to know that you speaking to the community, like Steph was saying earlier, we want to know that you want to be in that environment, in that team-driven environment where you're collaborating with your peers, that you're building. You want to be a constant learner. Professional development is a big part of Geotech as well in our culture. So just making sure that your value system is the same as ours, and that you have that collaborative piece to work with the team.
Right. So just to encourage our audience, please put in your questions in the Q&A section. We want this to be interactive so that we can pose them to our panelists. So if you have any questions, please put them in. I'm going to take a question that just came in from an audience, and this is related to part of this question has been responded to, but I would want your perspective on the other part of the question. And the questioner is saying, I love the way you have, and this was in reference to Stephanie, I love the way you've eliminated education requirements from your rules. And here's the question that I would want you to speak to, and also Christine, if you can touch on this with regards to international experience. Did you have pushback from leadership on this? How are you evaluating skills, knowledge, experience during the recruitment process?
Yeah, so I will say, I think one of the reasons that I think Iversoft has won the Employer Excellence Award is that we have an amazing leadership team. there's six, well, there's 5 of us, 6 of us. We make decisions as a team. And so we value each other's opinions. We value each other's perspectives. And so I can really happily say that there was no pushback there. It all made sense to them. It was all very logical and very straightforward. So no, there was no pushback when I proposed removing educational requirements. As a matter of fact, our very first developer that Vicky, our CTO, hired has a degree in, I think, mechanical engineering and had never coded at all. And she taught him herself. So it would be a little biased if she suddenly only wanted computer scientists. So no, there was no pushback at all. And in terms of skills, we use personally, we use we like to use third-party platforms. So we're currently for any tech skills, we use a platform called Codility. It is just it has pre-formatted dev tests, QA tests, things like that. Because we don't want to be one of those organizations that asks you to build an app or build a website and you end up sinking hours and hours and hours and hours into it. These tests are all set up so that it should take an hour or less, so that you're putting time into it, but you're not sinking your kind of entire weekend life, whatever, into it, so that that's flexible. And it kind of generates a nice report for us. But then at the same time, we always have one of our devs go in and then review everything that was done. So even if you maybe put in a report that didn't get, or a test that didn't get 100%, they'll go in and take a look and be like, okay, like what were the stumbling blocks? What might they have missed? And there's even been a couple tests we've reopened. Just to be like, hey, did you think about this way? And then reopened it for them and helped them out that way. So ultimately, we are trying to make sure that people are successful in the interview process by really focusing in on that skills level. I hope that answered the question. I think we did.
Right. Yeah. So another question that has just come in, and I believe I introduced this into the conversation, but I would like anybody else on the panel to jump in. And it's, in your opinion, is ghosting from job seekers more prevalent with newcomer immigrants or non-immigrants? If anybody's experienced this, do you have any perspective on this? Whether this is it's specific to any group of job seekers? I
don't think so.
No,
I've seen it from both. I would never have thought to identify it as from immigrants. It's just part of this phase that we're in right now, I think.
Yeah, the market's insane. It ghosted all the time. I agree with Christy. It's not one particular group. It's just reflective of how absolutely insane the market is right now for talent, that people are literally getting picked up when we've reached out to them the day before.
Right. No,
Exactly.
I agree with both of you, and I think it cuts across. And it's just, I've been doing this work in labor market integration for the last 15 years plus or so, and I've never experienced anything like this. Even offering people positions and trying to get through the recruitment processes in record time, and literally calling people sometimes a few hours after the interview to say, you know what, you emerged as a top candidate, would like to offer you the position. And they would say, well, can I think about this? And you get a hunch that is not a good sign. And 15 minutes later, you get a phone call saying, well, thanks very much, but I've accepted another position. So you can tell that they were just waiting to weigh their options between the offers that they had. And we are hearing a lot of this happening. Another question coming in here is, when it comes to challenges with language skill levels, would you recommend in-house language training be provided by employers? anybody wants to jump on this, either Sebastian or Marco?
I mean, I believe that any exposure to, let's say we use English, I mean, I would highly, highly recommend for anyone that, even especially me coming from learning English, it will help you to get outside your comfort zone and really get out there. And that's why a lot of organizations like the Y start having those pre-employment program where they are in a classroom, if you want, with other individuals that they are in the same level of English. And just that 4 to 5 weeks, I have testimony of students coming and saying, my English was, on a level 2 or 3, and now I'm able to overcome the fear of talking or being laughed at or whatever that is, because I'm in a group setting where you're welcome to share your thoughts and your history, your background, because everybody's in the same kind of situation. And that warms my heart to hear that we were able to make a difference for that student. So if employers are able to acknowledge or kind of not dismissing someone based on, okay, he or she is not there yet with their level of English, but everything else seems to line up, why not? You know what I mean? Because within a few weeks, I believe you're going to see a difference, and that staff would be forever grateful, So yeah, something around that, Marco.
Right, Marco, you've had some program to support employers with workplace language. What's your take on this?
Yeah, you're definitely right, Sebastian. Like we do need organizations like the Y and World Skills to support employers with candidates that have lower communication skills, because they do need additional support, and it also increases retention. And by giving these opportunities, they're going to constantly improve their communication skills, and also by going to like networking events that either World Skills or the Y are putting on. And the thing is, it's a very safe environment because they might be at the same level as you. So it's like Seb said, it's exactly spot on. It's just that we have to give the opportunity for them to get to the level that employers want them to, but at least give them the opportunity to start somewhere to get to that level.
Right. Christy or Steph, have you had any concerns about language with the hires that you have made? Sometimes the work is more technical and there's very little language required, especially when it comes to communication. Have you had to deal with language in your organizations?
I would say for us, it depends on the role. If it's a more technical role, absolutely, there might be some more grace, for lack of a better words. But if it was a sales role, say, then the communication might be a little more key. So it just depends on what role we're hiring for, from our perspective, at least.
Right. Yeah, I agree. It's really sales. We are definitely looking for a much firmer grasp on English because they are going to be communicating with clients and everything there. So we want to make sure that there's no miscommunication happening. But yeah, for engineering, I'd say definitely a little less so. I'd say one of the big ones that we emphasize is trying to have clarity in written messages, especially I always try to emphasize this whenever I'm doing coaching and everything. A lot of tech organizations are going to use platforms like Slack or Teams or something along those lines where it's an instant messaging platform. And so I try to put a lot of emphasis on short written communication. So not full formal communication, but that kind of short form communication where you're just chatting through a problem or something online. One thing we've actually had a lot of success with some of our staff is using Grammarly, which is actually used by like students and such to check grammar in, and I know to check grammar in emails and documents such like that. But we've actually handed it over to some of our new Canadian staff because even just having the grammar highlighted for them is kind of a neat little tool, because it's not something that gets called out all the time. So it's just kind of a great way for the computer to highlight, like, oh, this is kind of awkward phrasing or something like that. So it's even just like a little exposure that you can add right to your web browser, that you can even use on some of those IM platforms. I just saw someone message that they love Grammarly, so yay, Grammarly. Highly recommended as a tool, especially at, like, even if English is your first language, it's a great tool. But yeah, highly recommend it just as an offering to your staff.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so we're seeing, how AI is being used to address some of these challenges, and so good to hear that language shouldn't be a barrier just because somebody can express themselves fluently, but also to weigh that within the context of the nature of the job and the job requirements, whether do they need this level of proficiency in language or not before you make a decision as to whether to hire them or not. There's a question that is coming in. Marco, WellSkills has the SOPRA program, so you might want to take a crack at this. For someone outside Canada who wants to find a job in Canada and settle here, how do we figure out which companies or employers are interested in sponsoring a work visa?
So through the SOPA program at WellSkills, so it stands for Settlement Online Pre-Arrival. Most of this talent pool obviously is overseas, and they do have their PR status. And the employers that are tapping into this program are obviously looking to hire someone before they even arrive to Canada. And what's great is a Canada-wide initiative, but really to get someone to sponsor overseas, like from the employers I'm working with personally, they won't necessarily sponsor unless you have like a very niche skill sets. But considering the very tight market right now, they're becoming more and more open-minded for sure. Yeah, if you definitely have your PR status, definitely reach out to us, and I can put you in connection with SOPA, and employers are hiring before you arrive to Canada.
Right, thank you. Christy, can you speak to some of the specific ways that your organization ensures that once people are hired through their onboarding and retention, that they are set up to be successful in the workplace? And if you can share some of the things that your organization does, especially for newcomers in the workplace. We know recruitment is one, but retention is key if you want to ensure that innovation and productivity happens, because as we all are talking about, recruitment is expensive. So you don't want a revolving door of bringing people who are leaving constantly.
It's very true. And retention, I find, is finally coming back to the forefront, because it seemed to be a strong push on attraction. And then you kind of forgot the other half of the retention piece. So we do quite a bit on the retention side of things. As soon as you're onboarded, one of the first things we have you do, that we started through COVID, and we're completely keeping it in this new hybrid influx world that we're in right now, quasi post-pandemic, is that we've started these virtual coffee chats. I think a few of them have been in person now, but they started to be coined virtual coffee chats. So when you start with us, you pick anybody that you might be of interest in other departments, have a quick coffee with them, very casual, find out what their pain points are, what their pleasures are in the company, areas to get involved in, that kind of thing. Meet with different leadership members, meet with some of our junior developers, meet with our co-op students, meet with anybody within the company, and find those aspects. It might be a career path you're looking at. It might just be an interest level. So that has been a very successful initiative that we've put in, that has really been very well received. And now that we're coming back to the office, you get to meet those people too. So it's been really, really successful for us. We have weekly and monthly check-ins with your team, with your manager, with HR. We have monthly meetings for the whole company that we look at welcoming new members, big wins for the month, things to celebrate, right? All very positive messaging to keep the company very, or not the company, but the staff very engaged and very in tune with what's happening. Product development, I would say, is another piece that we do. I've been blown away since I've been with Geotech at how much emphasis they put into professional development and learning and development, whether it's monthly lunch and learns from everything you ever wanted to know about concrete to communication skills. And legitimately, everything you want to know about concrete is the coolest lunch and learn I've ever been to. And I'm in HR, so that says something. About a month ago, we had something called a boot camp that any employees who were interested, it was a full day, learn about our vision, learn about our sales strategies, learn about the product, play with the product. A full day of just everything you could know about the product. It helps with talent acquisition. It helps when you're doing screening. It helps if you're marketing, right? All divisions can learn greatly from that type of environment where you're learning the ins and outs and the intricacies of the product. So we have bigger learning and development too, whether it's mental health training, making sure that our leaders are really watching our staff with the world we're living in right now. Negotiation skills, all of those bigger, 2 or 3 day seminars. We're looking at those initiatives as well and making sure that everybody, all of our staff at Geotech are fully living their best professional lives.
Thank you. Steph, anything else you want to add from what you do at Iversoft?
Yeah, one thing actually for the employers out there, if you use Slack, there's a really, really cool add-on for it called Donut, which will randomly pair people in the Slack channel to have coffee with each other every other week. It's super cool. We've used it for a while now, and it's that same kind of principle, the ability to meet with literally anyone in the organization. But people get to opt into it by kind of joining this channel. So it's really cool. So if you use Slack, definitely check out Donut. It's a great tool. But other than that, I think one of the key things we really like to do is we have a buddy system. So every new hire that comes on is assigned a buddy because we find there sometimes are issues. People don't always feel comfortable speaking directly to their manager right away. There is that authority set up that I find some people can find really intimidating. So every new hire is assigned a buddy that's on the same level as them. That way they have someone who's gone through that same experience that they can ask questions to, that they can deal with those day-to-day things without having to kind of feel like they have to escalate everything to their manager. But all of our managers do one-on-ones and everything as well, very similar to what Christy was saying, making sure that you have those consistent check-ins, that you are following up with people, and that you're making people feel involved. I'd say anytime we really make a big decision in the company, we do try and involve everyone in the organization. We try to be as transparent as possible by making sure we're communicating everything across the board so that people feel really involved in the organization. So they feel like they have a stake in the organization. And I feel once people feel that involved and feel like they have that stake, it's easier to retain them because they feel part of that organization. They feel like what they're doing matters. They feel like they're contributing. And in our transparency, sometimes we joke, we say we overshare, but we go through all of our financials twice a year with our entire organization, breaking them down so that everyone can see kind of where revenue is coming, where revenue is going, what's happening in different projects, so that there really is that emphasis on like, you're a part of this. So we're sharing this with you because this matters for your life. This matters for decisions you're making. I'd say that's been a big one for us.
Right. Now, we almost coming to the end of this. I have another 15 minutes to go. And I know one of the questions that employers who are on this event would be interested in is, we have employment service providers here. How can we be involved? What are the kinds of ways that a service, value-added service that we can expect from you to help us find and recruit talent in our workplaces? Marco, can you share with us some ways that employers can expect some value-added service beyond just what they might get from a hiring firm, for example?
Yeah, definitely. Some world skills, we, other than just like the job matching and referrals, we also like to get employers involved in like a thing that we call the employer information session or targeted recruitment events. And what this entails, it could be either done virtually through Zoom or MS Teams or in person. And we proactively target the right profiles for the roles that you're sourcing to these events to ensure the return investment of your participation. And what this entails is you talk about your organization, the different openings that you have, your application process. You could even provide some of the insights or any guidance to help our job seekers stand out. And you can also open up the floor to Q&A. And these are probably our most popular sessions, both from the employer side and from the job seekers, because you might uncover talent that you might not know otherwise just by looking at a resume. Because I've seen in the past where job seekers pitch themselves during these sessions and the employers are like, wow, this is an incredible experience. I don't have a role right now, but actually I can create a role just for your skill sets because I want to keep you engaged and I don't want to lose you as a candidate. We also, if we take the relationship a bit further, we can also organize a corporate mentorship. And just to give you an example, we've done one with TD the last 10 years. And what this entails, it involves your management team and your employees in interacting with our newcomers, job seekers, either through workshops, job shadowing, and mentorship. And in the end, this also helps you build a talent pool in the process. And I've seen it through TD where they've hired over 100 plus newcomers through this mentorship. And it also helped 300 other newcomers who learned from this mentorship secure employment. So that's from an organizational standpoint. But another way I like to get employers involved is individually, because it's important for your staff to get constant interactions with newcomer talent so that they can, one, improve their intercultural competencies for assessing foreign talent. And hopefully that will help reduce those unconscious bias in the recruitment process. And it's also great professional and personal development to improve their presentation skills, leadership skills, and to share their subject matter expertise to help more newcomers get secured to employment.
Right. Thank you. Sebastian, what other ways does your programs engage employers? What additional value adders do you have? As well, if you can also highlight on other incentives that you manage on behalf of government that provide some wage subsidies or similar kinds of programs for people who might be looking to hire but looking for a little bit of support, especially small organizations. And also speak to some of the programs you have around the trades, because there's a lot of white collar jobs that we've been focusing on, but we also have people who are in the skills trade sector looking for talent.
Henry. Thank you. Yeah, you're right, Henry. I mean, I'll start first about just the options available to employers that they can tap in that often are unaware is the subsidies that the government is giving our position, like the why and what's not in the province, that they can tap in for free. So there's I'm not going to go into too much details, but there are pockets of funds available for employers if they reach out to any Employment Ontario site, like the YMCA is one of those one, and there are other across the province where if they are hiring someone within the association or their candidate pool of the association that they can have that wage subsidy to offset the cost of training and the orientation period at the beginning that often the employer will put up front to train someone. It takes longer time to go over procedures. And I mean, there's a ton of obviously material that needs to be covered in training. We are going to give an X amount of dollar, up to $6,000 per trainee to offset that cost. So often employers, once they do it once, they come back and they go for second and third, and they realize it's not as difficult that might sound to just register and go over the thing, because the association will filter the candidates. We'll go through who they're really looking for and send them only the best 5 or 10 candidates where they can go at that point through interviews and what's not. So there's a lot of a pocket of money like that they can tap in if they're looking for training or upscaling training for their current staff. They can also apply to the Canada Ontario Job Grant, where now they can send their current staff or new hires for training in the community. Up to $10,000 they can get. So really, it's an option for every employer in Ontario. They can tap in, and it will cost them little to nothing to go through that program. So now we're seeing more and more employers going through that program in order to retain and attract new candidates. I think your second question was about some of our program, the skill trades, Henry, right?
Yeah, just very briefly, are there ways that you support organizations in the skilled trade sector?
Yeah, so right now, skilled trades is, unless you live under a rock, like it's really hot right now. So there's a lot of demand. And now we're trying to get a lot of individual for those one are like, hey, skilled trades, you can get paid very well, great schedule, and it's in demand right now. Unless it is a regulated profession or compulsory profession that you need to go through certain degrees and hours to get through your education, like an electrician per se, there's a lot, 160, I think, ways that you can go through the skilled trades and that you can apply. The main key here is the connection, is to find an employer who's willing to give you a chance and can see your potential that you can give. And I'll talk about the why we do have several programs in the skilled trades, either pre-employment and also skills training, so hands-on training in the home renovation, construction, tiling, all that kind of stuff. We are providing that training, and we have a final product with a client at the end of 6 months where we have an employer lining up and say, I know they train already, I want to hire them, and we have our time to keep them in classes. So there are definitely options in the community. They just need to make a phone call. If it's not with the WIDO, we'll be referred to another partner agencies. We're all working together, and then they would just want to help employers and job seekers find employment or matching them together.
Right, thank you. As we wrap up, Christy and Steph, both your organizations fall within the small, mid-size enterprises in terms of size. And we know SMEs are the engine of growth in our labor force. What would it be a quick word of advice you would give to organizations about the kinds of support that exist to enhance the ability to reach out, to attract and integrate immigrants? You both are very engaged partners with Hi Immigrants Ottawa and some of our community agencies. You've participated in a number of the programs that we offer to support you, cross-cultural competency, fostering cultural belonging in the workplace. You both participate in our coaching events. What would be your advice to employers out there about getting on board and enhancing the ability to find the best in-class talent, including newcomers?
Yeah, I'd say I know Lorena's in the chat, and I know that the ISOs made like a nationwide website, and that launched recently, ish. And so I think that's actually a fantastic resource. Lorena can correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sorry I'm calling you out, Lorena. but I know it came out recently. Yes, the Immigrant Employment Councils Network. They created a website so that you can find your local organization across the country, because obviously we're here with HIO leading. It can feel a little Ottawa centric, but there are organizations, similar organizations across the country that are absolutely incredible. I know, is it Triac?
That's correct.
In Toronto, is absolutely excellent. And I think really it is important to make sure you're leveraging these networks, because one, it gives you access to a talent pool that you maybe didn't have access to, but two, it also shows applicants that you are an organization that is passionate about inclusion, because you're working with these organizations. And so it automatically kind of sets a comfort level for applicants coming in. So I can't stress enough how important it is to work with these different organizations. Lorena linked the website in chat because she's amazing. So definitely check out the Immigrant Employment Councils Network, because they are literally funded to support employers. And that's how they get their funding. So take advantage of the programs they offer. I think Marco and Sebastian have covered their programs brilliantly. Like, if they're there, so take advantage of them. And that's the best tip I can give you. Aside from all of the recruitment and retention practices we do, if you're not building a good network, then it's kind of wasted. So really leveraging what's out there, and works for your community, because ultimately, like, for us, HIO has been fantastic because they have such a great insight into the Ottawa area, but working with whoever across the country is relevant for you, they're going to know the needs of your community specifically. I see someone just linked the Immigrant Employment Council of BC. So there you go. Like, there's someone who's going to know the specific needs of your area, who will be able to support you in attracting talent for your area, even occasionally with PR process stuff, things like that, with those nominee programs. So yeah, definitely check out the nationwide network, and find the community partners that will best support your organization, and reach out to them, because I'm sure Marco and Sebastian will tell you they're more than happy.
Thank you, Stefan. Christy, any word of advice for employers that you want to add?
Yeah, I completely agree with what Steph was saying, but even on top of that too, on the retention side, there's so many great resources with the competency training. And I think, Steph, I think that might even be where we met.
I think it is
the first time. So great networking opportunities, but great skill building. Learn about those unconscious biases, learn about the most meaningful way to ask questions in interviews that are respectful and culturally sensitive. There's so many opportunities for your staff as well to grow as leaders and to network. It's just all around great opportunities.
Yeah, we've made it mandatory training for a couple of our departments to do the CCC training with HIO. So if you haven't done the CCC training at HIO, do it. Little plug for HIO.
Yeah, and Lorena's plugging again there as well. Another amazing initiative is the fostering a workplace of, I always get this, a workplace culture
of belonging.
Yes. So,
well, thanks very much. This has been very exciting discussions, and I hope that our audience have taken some very practical tips and strategies that have been shared, and also learned about some programs that are provided across this country. The Immigrant Employment Councils Network provides a suite of program support to employers across this country. The links to the websites have been shared, as well as links to the various IECs in the various cities across this country. I want to thank our panelists very much for making the time to share these insights with us, and also to all of you members of the audience who joined us today for this event. Thank you very much. For anybody who wants to reach out to Hi Immigrants Ottawa to continue discussion, please check out our website or contact me. Follow us on any of our social media platform on LinkedIn or Twitter, and we will continue to have these conversations. I will pass things back on to Gerald.
Thank you, Henry, and thank you to all the panelists for all the perspectives and for all the solutions they highlighted, and to hire and retain immigrant talent. So this was a webinar, part of the Employer Perspectives webinar series brought to you by the Immigrant Employment Councils of Canada and New Canadians TV network. You can connect, as mentioned earlier in the session, you can connect with the Immigrant Employment Council of Canada through their website to also reach out to your local employment council. And also you can connect with Hire Immigrants Ottawa, which is the local immigrant employment council in the Ottawa region, through their website, so that they can help you, support you with your efforts to recruit and retain immigrant talent. There's also currently a campaign going on to support employers in hiring specifically refugee talent, and it's called Welcoming Economy for Refugees. You can either follow the hashtag on social media, Welcoming Economy, or check out the welcomingeconomy.ca website, where you will see a number of employer testimonials and refugee success stories around this topic. To know more about the upcoming webinars in this series, Employer Perspectives, you can, if you haven't done so, you can join our mailing list, the New Canadians mailing list, to know about future events and other activities we're doing. Or you can also follow us on any of our social channels on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram, as well as the Telegram messaging app. You can also, if you're in Canada, you can watch our programming on Omni Television every week, as well as check it out in Canada and overseas on our YouTube channel, where this session is being live streamed, and also on our website, newcanadians.tv. Lastly, when you exit this webinar on Zoom, if you've joined on Zoom, please do take a few seconds to take our survey, because it will help us improve our events, our activities, and bring you better experience next time around. Thank you again for all the panelists, for Henry for moderating this very informative session, and